So I think maybe it took the pandemic for me to really decide that I wasn't going to continue letting myself not do the things I wanted to do just because I'd been told I shouldn't. And so in the healthiest way possible, when I started training for the Grand Canyon hike, it was a lot of mental and physical training to get myself prepared to do a big hike like this physically and mentally.
My name is Rein Barlow. I am a hippie at heart, a little bit of a wild child. Free spirit is something that I've been called in negative and positive context. But really this story I have to tell is just kind of about overcoming obstacles and living life to the fullest, even when it's hard to live life to the fullest. I have really struggled with chronic illness probably most of my life, but I didn't start getting diagnoses for anything probably till I was 17. And I started finding out that I had some arthritis type conditions and autoimmune disorders that were causing me severe pain, chronic fatigue. You get these pain flares that come out of nowhere and you can't do anything about it. You can't really do anything but wait it out or power through it.
They diagnosed me with ankylosing spondylitis at 18 and started treatment for that, which is an arthritis type condition that affects really all of my joints, but specifically my back and my hips, and my hands and my fingertips and things like that, pretty severely with just widespread inflammation. So I am on some medications and on treatment plans that are supposed to help stop further damage from happening, but also just to kind of encourage my body to keep inflammation down and keep my joints mobile and things like that. And so part of that treatment for me was making sure I was still walking and doing any exercise that I could do without really pushing it too far. A few years later, I found out I also had a heart condition, which was supraventricular tachycardia, which is a big mouthful, but it just means sometimes my heart will beat way too fast and I'll have like really severe heart palpitations that might make me dizzy and things like that.
I really had been dreaming of visiting the Grand Canyon since I was a kid. My dad always talked about like camping adventures with his family, and we did a lot of like outdoorsy stuff when I was little, so hiking wasn't like something I did all the time, but it was definitely something I've always enjoyed doing. And so going through the entire pandemic situation and just really being stuck inside and feeling kind of stuck in life, an opportunity came up for me to hike the Grand Canyon, and I said yes and started training my ass off to hike the Grand Canyon. So this is one of the trails that I used for training because it's an 8-mile trail, so it's a good mileage marker to kind of test how my endurance is going to be. But it also just includes a lot of different like landscaping. Like this is kind of the woodsy, foresty area where you're walking on like a dirt path. But here up in a little while, it'll be like more bouldery and rocky. And there'll even be some areas at the end that have kind of the sand landscape that you actually run into at the Grand Canyon too, which is something that a lot of people aren't really prepared for. So this kind of just gets your body used to walking on some different kinds of grounds, and then it helps you kind of understand when you might need to use your poles or when you need more support in different areas, so you can be prepared when you get out there to the canyon. January 2020, I got diagnosed with endometriosis. And so I was having that issues on top of the arthritis issues too. But I was really determined to push through, and for me, working out and like being active also helps those chronic pain conditions. But when you have a flare and you can't do something for a couple months or a month or however long, if you're on a training program, that sets you back. And I had a really bad flare, I think 2 months before the canyon, and it was supposed to be the 2 months that I was like really hitting the training goals of like at least 12 miles in a day, at least, 20 miles at some point on a weekend. When I was training for this hike, I did have a lot of people that knew me intimately and knew my health struggles, that were concerned about this goal of mine. And I think the concern was from a good place, but I really knew myself well enough to know that it was something that I still wanted to try to do. The concerns were that maybe I wasn't physically strong enough or able to have a hike like this and to complete a hike like this. And I think the encouragement was more like, get out and do something, but maybe stick to kayaking, or, maybe just go on some neighborhood hikes or some urban hikes in the neighborhood, not something so intense and so enduring. And I kind of just ignored them. But I think that it's important to push those boundaries. And when you struggle with physical health, it can be really easy to just get stuck inside. And I mean, going through a pandemic, I think now people really know what it's like to be stuck inside. But when you have chronic pain and chronic illness, it's really easy to just get sucked into the idea and the world that, the outdoors aren't meant for you, or that these physical challenges and activities just aren't something that you can do. And that was sort of the message, at least that I was getting from people, even if it wasn't explicitly what they were saying, was that, this isn't the challenge for you, or this isn't made for you. But I really wanted to try, and I really wanted to challenge myself and my body in a way that was a big risk, but I think it also had a big reward. I think it was really important to listen to my body and not push too far. And that's really important. That's something that I want to make sure people understand, is that yes, I pushed myself and I did push the limits a little bit. But I still made sure not to overdo it or not do something that was gonna be set me back even further, because the end goal was to be able to hike this canyon and enjoy it, not to try to kill myself hiking this canyon. And so I tried to find that balance as much as I could. And I had to also be okay with the fact that I might not get to do the full 24-mile hike. Maybe I got to the canyon and I wasn't in a good enough place to be able to do that. And so mentally I had to be okay with that. And I think that honestly, that was probably something that helped me be able to achieve it, is because I was okay with if it wasn't perfect. Even if I got there, even if I just hiked, 10 miles, maybe that would be good enough to kind of fill that goal in my soul, that I wanted to see the canyon and hike the canyon. But if I could, I was going to hike the 24 miles. And if I could, I was going to push myself as far as was safe and comfortable to get there.
So one of the reasons why this is a really great training trail for the canyon is because it does have some really good elevation change, and the rocky footing is something you kind of have to get used to. And so it's a good time too to learn how to use your poles, because it just takes some adjusting to learn how to hold them the way you want to hold them, and how you want to get your weight distributed can be kind of tricky at first. And so doing some training hikes like this, where you don't necessarily need your poles to get you up the mountain, but they help, and you can kind of learn how to use them for your best purpose. So. So I just finished, I think 6 miles. It said it was 8, but I think it was 6. And I thought I'd show you a little bit on my backpack more, like in person. So again, this is just like the Walmart brand backpack, outdoor products. I think it was like $35 or something. And it's got so many pockets and so many like clips and stuff. So I kind of wanted to show you some of how I have it rigged up. This like front pouch, you can put like a cover in case it rains or something like that in there, so it's easy to access. But I use it for my trash on the trail. So following Leave No Trace, this was trash we packed in, and then this was just some shit we found on the trail, and we like to try to be good humans when we can and clean it up. So that's my little trash bag. And then not going into too much detail, but my poles can kind of just slap into this pocket, and I have the zipper tie hooked up to this snap so that it kind of keeps it locked and closed. And you could use like a carabiner or something like that too. And then this just loosens so your poles are easy to pull out and access like that. And then getting them back in when you don't need them, they'll be pretty secured in here with this little setup. And then these pockets are great because you can put things that you need to access really quickly in there. So that's where I have my like big bag of important things, like sunscreen and mace and a phone and a knife. So that's kind of a nice pocket there. And then the drawstring bag means you can basically pack it as full as you need to pack it, and then shut it down. But the inside is mostly just a stuff pack, so there's nothing too fancy about that. But then we just got lots of junk, so I don't know if you want to see all my junk, but here's some of my sunscreens and bug sprays and things like that. And I'll use Ziplocs, but always make sure you don't leave trash on the trail because we want to enjoy it. So yeah. So everybody gets to kind of choose their own adventure on hikes, and I'm of the belief that it's always good to stop and smell the roses or stop and see waterfalls. So when you're out in all of this beautiful nature, don't worry so much about your time unless you have to, and sit down and have a snack and drink some water and listen to the waterfalls. It's beautiful.